Welcome to the Do Good X podcast, a sanctuary from the entrepreneurial grind. Hosts Kimberly Danielle and Stephen Lewis, advocates for impactful entrepreneurship, guide you on the path where purpose meets business. Join us to slow down, reconnect, and explore the challenges of under-resourced entrepreneurs, uncovering the unique journey of building businesses that make a difference. Now, your hosts.
Welcome, everyone, to the Do Good X podcast. I hope you are doing well today. My name is Kimberly Danielle, and I am your co-host. I'm also a community builder, a coach, and a communication strategist who comes from generations of faith-driven entrepreneurs who believe that our purpose should drive us to contribute to the common good. I want to thank you for being present and being here. And in last week's episode, if you did not join us, Stephen and I had a wonderful time chatting with Nipun Mehta, who is the founder of Service Space. Service Space is an incredible organization that leverages technology to encourage everyday people around the world to do small acts of service. Their aim is to ignite generosity in themselves and others, and to create both an inner and an outer transformation. So check out that episode, but first stay tuned in for today. If you are an entrepreneur who is committed to building your business from a place of compassion and generosity, hearing from Nipun might be the gift to spark some ideas for you. And after listening to this brief episode today on technology, slowing down, and community, you just might be inspired to go back to last week to hear more from Nipun. What is one piece of technology that has been a game changer for your business?
I think coding. AI is able to code stuff like there is. It's like stuff that would take a whole engineering team. It just spits out like that. So there's this new model called, or a lot of people are thinking about single-use software now, where you think of software as something you have an engineering team, you build and you deploy, and then you keep iterating and make it better. Now it's just so cheap. It's like a tap of a button. They're like, well, what app should I make for Kimberly this morning? You know, it's like kind of mind blowing. So yeah, we've been using that a whole lot.
All right. What is the greatest lesson so far on your entrepreneurial / generosity journey?
Well, I would say on my entrepreneurial journey, I would say that, typically you tend to think of leadership as deciding between right and wrong. But I think what I have learned is that you have to decide. Leadership is really about decisions where it's between right and right. Like you have two right decisions, and which right decision are you going to go towards? And I think that's a much harder, because each decision is going to have, if you go in this direction, it's going to be right for a certain set of conditions. And if you go in this direction, it's going to be right for a certain other set of conditions. And so what is going to be your barometer? And I think that's something that I've refined over the years. And again, for me, for a lot of people, you optimize for the narrow margin goals. And I think it's for each one to figure out what those things, what their parameters are. But I have learned in the value of the broad margin goals, leading with the broad margin goals, and then, of course, narrow margin goals as well. So, yeah, distinct between right and right, man. That's hard.
What is one of your go-to practices or rituals to slow down, center, and connect with yourself?
Apart from acts of kindness, I would say meditation. So I just sit, usually, except for this last year because of some family illness, I'll spend 30 days of the year in just silent retreat, no reading, writing, talking. And I think I would be a disaster if it wasn't for that. So I'm very grateful for the meditation.
All right. What is one gift that you bring to the world, Nipun?
I would say joy, maybe. I look at people like Desmond Tutu and Dalai Lama, man. They have the weight of the whole world on their. They've held the weight of the world on their shoulders for decades and decades, and they're full of joy, man. They're not shortcutting suffering in the world, but they're able to hold the suffering with these incredibly wider arcs of capacity, which I think is far greater than the ebbs and flows of the suffering, which is heartbreaking. But so I think that kind of joy, that deeper kind of joy is what I aspire to have. So I can't say it's my 100% gift, but I hope I can bring it,
How much of your success do you attribute to your faith versus your own grit, will, and hustle?
Oh, well, you know what I want to say? I want to say 100% I would attribute to grace. But if I'm being honest, I would say a 16-year-old asked me that question, not that question, but asked me the question, what advice would you have to your 16-year-old self? And I said back when I was 16, I would have thought that 90% is grit and 10% is grace. That it kind of happens, and I would say that now it's flipped for me. I would say it's 90% grace, 10% grit. And where I want to get to is that 100% grace, in the sense that the more deeper I see the power of grace, the power of unearned merit that factor into each equation. I mean, look at this podcast. Like, we met in a hallway. Well, we met in like some post conversation. Then we were in a hallway together in like some random place in Los Angeles. You don't live there. I don't live there. And, here we are. Like, so is it because you're great and I'm great? Or is it because of some larger story? And I'm very biased towards thinking, I think it's a larger story. I don't need to know it, but I can flow with it.
Complete this sentence. Because of my entrepreneurial endeavors, communities will be or are more able to
come alive, not just individually, but collectively. They're able to connect with each other in many-to-many networks and awaken a collective heart intelligence, which is greater than the sum of the parts. So 1 and 1 is more than 2, because the plus sign has value, right? It's not just you and me and your gifts and mine and your accumulated power and wealth and my accumulated power and wealth. It's something much greater than both of us put together. So I hope.
Thank you, Nipun, for being a reflection of generosity, compassion, and kindness, and for the way you approach business and technology for good. If you want to learn more about ways to connect with us and other entrepreneurs on the journey, go to dogoodx.org. Here you can subscribe to our email to keep posted on our resources to help you build a business for good. As always, thank you for joining us. And until next time, be well and do good.
Thank you for listening to the Do Good X podcast. To continue the conversation or access our resources, visit www.dogoodx.org. Join us again for conversations that will nourish your soul, ignite your dreams, and empower you to build an impactful business, one intentional step at a time. Until then, keep striving, thriving, and doing good.